Everybody, my name is Maria, and I'm here to answer a few questions regarding my activism in fighting oil companies. The first question is, Maria Rita, you are a physicist and a mathematician that earned the nickname of the Italian Aaron Brockovich because you managed to fight off oil giants who had plans to drill for oil in Abruzzo. How did you get involved in it? Well, this is a very long story that actually started back in 2007. I live in California. I have lived in Los Angeles for more than 15 years now, but I am from Abruzzo, Italy. That's where my parents came from, and I lived there for about 10 years when I was younger. And again, back in 2007, somebody told me just, casually that the oil company Eni, Italy's largest company for oil, was going to start drilling in that particular region. And at the time, I wasn't really sure what all this meant, but I knew that it wasn't a good thing. And so I started investigating on my own. I tried to, gather as much information as I could. And also, again, I live far away, so it's not that I really had, all this information on the tips of my fingers, or that I could, talk to anybody. But I tried to reach out as much as I could to the locals over there, trying to, warn them and just tell them, look, this is not something that's going to be good for your community. And I contacted all the university professors of Abruzzo, asking them to get involved because, again, I live too far. And again, I tried to reach out to local, to several publications, to people that live there. And at the beginning, it was very difficult because nobody really, very few people actually, took me seriously or thought that I had anything to say about this. In fact, all of these university professors that I contacted, very few of them even answered my initial request. But some locals who live there actually came back to me, and they, told me how worried they were about this, especially because at the time, nobody really knew much either about the project or in general about what oil drilling really meant for a community. And I must say that the oil company in this particular instance was very good from their perspective in A, keeping everything secret, and in B, trying to cover up as much as they could what their real intentions were. And suffice it to say that the plan called for 3 oil wells to begin with, a refinery, and a series of pipelines to pipe this oil from the refinery towards the ocean. Now, the refinery was not called refinery, they called it oil center. And to any Italian person, the word oil means olive oil. And so they played on this, game between olive oil and petroleum for quite some time. And so people didn't really know what was going to happen. Okay? And so I got involved in all this, and again, the first thing they asked me to do was to write some kind of report that could be circulated among people so that, they could sort of at least learn the basics and try to get informed about all this. And so that's what I did. I spent a few days just, going through all the literature, trying to do the best that I could to make it clear for people in a real simple language for the everyday person. And after that, I would say it was kind of successful. People, noticed this thing, and they read it and they were thankful. And then they asked me to go back and to deliver a series of lectures around the region of Abruzzo where we were talking about this topic of oil. And even that, was kind of, I would say, rather successful. People, liked it, and they were very happy. And I noticed that actually people were hungry for this kind of information. They really wanted to know more so that they could have the tools to be better informed. And also, what's very interesting is that Italy is a very difficult society, I would say. The level of corruption is really high, and people find it very difficult, I think, to trust A or B, because you never know if A or B is telling you the truth, if they have hidden motives or anything like that. And in my case, I think it was crystal clear. I did not have, and I still do not have, any ulterior motives in any of this. I just think that it's wrong for an oil company to come into an agricultural community and try to establish itself as a gigantic polluter. And at some point, I think the message came across that, again, I had zero interest for my own person, and again, I just was doing this because I didn't want the place where I'm from to turn into an oil district. And from that moment on, I would say that people, again, trusted what I was saying, and and also they were able to see it with their own eyes, because I just I showed it to them, like, this is what happens in any community in the world where oil drilling comes and tries to change the fabric of society. And I'm not talking just about the environment, but just the way actually the democracy is going to function. They sort of take over all the decision-making process, and they basically put everything to waste, in my opinion. And so, I've been doing this now for about 8 years, and I would say that, we were quite successful in this movement. The original project, the one that I talked about, the oil center, the refinery that was called an oil center, that actually has not been completed, and the oil company put it on an indefinite halt. And this was, quite a reason for satisfaction, because, if you go back and read the investor statements of the time, they would call this project, it was called Miglianico, they would, label it as the most important project that this oil company had for the entire country of Italy in the mid-2000s. So it was quite a success that, I from abroad and people that lived there, with absolutely zero political connections or any kind of extraordinary powers, that we were able to actually stop this. And after that, there has been I would say sort of a cascade, or smaller and bigger victories that we were able to report against the oil companies. But I think that the best thing that came out of this was actually a real shift in the public perception about oil drilling. Before I started all this, people's reactions to oil drilling was either, I don't have any opinion at all, or, we're going to become all very rich. That's what people thought when they were told, there's oil in the ground. And right now, after 8 years of, going throughout the country, preaching, writing, trying to do the best that I could to get the message out there, I would say that after 8 years, the public sentiment is way shifted. People now associate oil drilling with pollution, with very little monetary gain or any other kind of economic advantage to the communities that are affected by oil drilling. And so the reaction right now is one of opposition towards oil companies. And again, I would say that this is probably the biggest I would say victory of these years of my fighting the oil companies. And as for the comparison with Erin Brockovich, I am very honored by this, but our styles are kind of different. I am much more of a, I would say intellectual and I don't mean that in a bad way, but just a much more, using a much more of a scientist kind of approach to all this. I'm kind of more reserved than she was. But again, I take this as a very big compliment. Okay, so let's move on to the next question.